War had stolen his family from him, but the sea had given him a reason to live in this strange world where pain and peace intertwined. At midnight, Stephan Mitchell did not wake up because he was no longer sleeping. On Giuseppe's cabin mattress, his eyes fixed on the ceiling, he counted the wooden beams. It was the 23rd consecutive night. 23 nights without sleeping more than 2 hours. But that night was different. A sound from outside caught his attention. A rhythmic, repetitive, almost musical sound. The sound of waves. Each wave striking the wooden hull of the Second Chance seemed to sing a lullaby. Stephan froze, listening. For the first time, that sound did not disturb him. For the first time, that sound did not suffocate him. He rose slowly, put on his boots, and opened the wooden door silently. Outside it was dark, but the moonlight had transformed the Pacific Ocean into a silver blanket. The pier was deserted. Only him, the night, and the waves. The Second Chance was moored at the pier. It swayed slightly. Forward, backward, an infinite cycle. A cycle that never stops, never judges, never asks. Stephan sat on the edge of the pier and let his feet dangle. The cold sea air filled his lungs. Salty, humid, purifying. The smell of smoke from that night in Brooklyn was gone. No trace of the fire remained. Only the sea. Giuseppe had told him something a week earlier. The sea speaks. But not everyone can hear it. If you learn to listen, it will tell you everything. He hadn't understood it then. But now, in the stillness of the night, while listening to the monotonous rhythm of the waves, he understood. The waves did not cause him pain. Instead, they calmed him. He took the metal flask from his jacket pocket. It contained whiskey, an old habit he had acquired in Okinawa. Every night he drank to be able to sleep. But that night he opened the flask, smelled its aroma, and closed it. He put it back in his pocket. He didn't need whiskey. The sound of the waves was enough. The sky slowly changed color. The black of night transformed into purple tones. Dawn was approaching. Stephan had spent 12 years in the army. He had seen dozens of dawns on battlefields, in Guadalcanal, in Iwo Jima, and Okinawa. But none had made him feel this way. This dawn was different. It was peaceful. It was as if nature was saying, everything can begin again. A pink line appeared on the horizon. Then orange, then gold. The sun slowly rose from the bottom of the ocean. The light struck the waves and each one became a diamond. Stephan held his breath. He gazed at that beauty, and inside him something stirred. It wasn't hope, not yet that strong, but perhaps it was that small light that precedes hope. The first flickering light seen in darkness. Have you been standing guard in the early morning sun? Giuseppe's voice came from behind. The old fisherman wrapped in a blanket sat beside him. I couldn't sleep, said Stephan simply. I know, said Giuseppe. I hear you every night. You toss and turn. Are they nightmares? Stephan shook his head. Sometimes, but tonight. I was just awake, and I was listening to the waves. Giuseppe smiled. Ah, so you've started to hear them. Good. Very good. I don't know exactly what I hear, said Stephan honestly. But there's something. It's as if the waves are trying to tell me something. They are telling you, said Giuseppe. They are telling you solace for those who suffer, a guide for those who are lost. The sea does not judge. It only accepts. Stephan tried to absorb those words. Not to judge, to accept. How long had he been searching for that? Someone who would forgive him, or at least not blame him. In Okinawa, Colonel Harrison had told him, You haven't died. You are wounded. You are broken. But you are still breathing. When he returned to San Diego, Captain Chen had written him a letter. Are you happy? I hope so. When he arrived in Monterey, Giuseppe told him, The sea gives peace, but it also takes it away. You must be prepared. Now, 3 weeks later, he finally understood. The sea had not promised him anything. It had only given him an opportunity to begin again. Not to forget his pain because he could never forget it, but to learn to live with it. Giuseppe, said Stephan, his voice breaking. "I miss them. Every second, every breath." Margaret's voice, Thomas's laughter, Emily's piano. "They are all here in my head. But when I go out to sea, they become a little quieter." "Is that betraying them?" Giuseppe placed his hand on Stephan's shoulder. "No, son. That is healing. You are not forgetting them. You are only learning to live with their love, not their pain. That's a big difference." "How can I do it?" asked Stephan with tears in his eyes. "How can I live with love? They died. They died because of me. I couldn't protect them." "No," said Giuseppe sternly. "It was not your fault. It was war, evil, but not you. You loved them. That is enough. That is always enough." The sun had already risen completely. The town began to wake. In the distance, Marco's boat motor was heard. A seagull cried. Life continued. "Today," said Giuseppe as he stood up, "I will take you to a different place. The northern Gulf. There are rocks there, deep waters, but it is also a very beautiful place, peaceful. Will we go together?" asked Stephan. "No," replied Giuseppe. "You will go alone. But this time you won't just fish. You will sit there, listen, feel. You will understand what the sea is telling you." Stephan hesitated. "Am I ready?" "If I didn't believe you were, you wouldn't have asked the question," said Giuseppe wisely. "Go. The boat is waiting for you." Half an hour later, Stephan was at the helm of the Second Chance. He left the harbor slowly. Giuseppe was on the pier, waving goodbye. Stephan turned one last time and looked at him. In the old man's face was reflected an expression of pride, perhaps a little sadness, but above all pride. It took an hour to reach the northern Gulf. The coast had changed. It was rockier, wilder, less human. High cliffs fell abruptly into the sea. Trees bent with the wind. There were no houses, no people. It was perfect. He found the place Giuseppe had described. A small cove protected by cliffs. The water was crystal clear, a blue-green color. The waves were calmer and softer there. It was as if the bay was hugging him. He turned off the motor. Complete silence. He sat on the boat deck, leaned his back against the cabin. He closed his eyes, and he simply listened. At first he heard nothing, only his own breathing, the beating of his heart. But gradually other sounds began to appear, the waves. Soft rhythmic waves that gently struck the boat's hull. The wind. Wind that whispered through the sails, the seagulls. Seagulls that cried on distant rocks, and something else, an indefinable sound. Perhaps it wasn't a sound. Perhaps it was a sensation, a vibration, as if the ocean breathed. Like a giant, living ancestral being, Stephan felt he was part of that being. Small, insignificant, but part of it. Like a drop, part of the ocean. For the first time since that night in Brooklyn, he did not feel alone. Margaret was not here, Thomas was not here, Emily was not here. But he was not alone, because the sea was here, and the sea understood him. Perhaps the sea did not speak. Perhaps it was only his imagination. But in that moment, imagination was real, and that was enough. He sat there until midday. He did not move, did not do anything. He simply existed, and that, after 12 years of war and 3 months of pain, was the most difficult thing he had done. To exist. Simply to exist. When the midday sun was high, he finally opened his eyes. The world seemed brighter. The colors were more vivid, the sounds sharper. It was as if a veil had been lifted from his eyes. He stood up. He prepared his net. But this time he cast it with a different intention. Not with greed, but with gratitude. The sea had given him something, peace. Now he wanted something in return, only enough. On his first cast he caught 3 sea bass. On the second, 2 more. It was enough. He didn't need more. He cleaned the fish and stored them in the box. Then he sat again, ate a sandwich and drank water. A simple lunch, but it tasted wonderful. In the afternoon, he simply let himself drift. With the motor off and the sail half open, the Second Chance went where the wind and current took it. Loss of control would normally have caused Stephan to panic. A Marine always had to be in control, but now letting go was freedom. After a while, he lay flat on the deck. The sky was blue, with a few fluffy clouds scattered on the horizon. The clouds slowly changed shape. One looked like Margaret's profile, another like Thomas's toy train, another like Emily's piano. Tears rolled down his cheeks. But this time he was not crying. He was simply remembering with a smile. "I love you," he whispered to the sky. "I will always love you. But now I have to live for you, not with you. I understand that." Finally, I understand. With the breeze, the clouds dispersed and their shapes disappeared. But the image remained inside Stephan, clear, sharp, without pain. At sunset, upon returning to the harbor, he found Giuseppe on the pier. The old man was waiting with curiosity. "How was it?" he asked. Stephan smiled. A genuine smile. The first genuine smile since May. "Good," he replied. "Very good." Giuseppe nodded. He understood. "The sea has spoken to you." "Yes," said Stephan, "and I have listened." That evening, sitting around the fire in Giuseppe's cabin, Stephan began to speak for the first time on his own initiative. In the previous weeks, Giuseppe would ask him questions, and Stephan would answer with brief responses. But that night was different. "Today, in the bay," said Stephan, holding his coffee cup with both hands, "I have understood something. The pain will never disappear. Margaret, Thomas, Emily, their absence will always be here." He pointed to his chest. "But perhaps that absence does not have to kill me. Perhaps I can live with them." Giuseppe lit his pipe. He exhaled the smoke slowly. "Continue," he said simply. "In war," continued Stephan, "everything was black or white. The enemy, the friend, living, dying, winning, losing. But in the sea everything is shades of gray. Pain and peace at the same time. Loss and discovery at the same time. And today, for the first time, I have been able to make peace with those shades of gray." "Bravo," said Giuseppe softly. "It is the beginning of healing. Life is not in black and white. It is in shades of gray. And when you are able to accept the shades of gray, that is when you truly begin to live." Stephan took a sip of his cup. The coffee had cooled, but he didn't mind. "War taught me many things. Discipline, strategy, leadership. But the sea teaches other things. Patience, acceptance, surrender." "Surrender is not weakness," said Giuseppe. "It is a sign of strength. Because to be able to surrender, you must first know yourself. You must know your limits. And that is the most difficult thing." The fire crackled softly. Outside, night had fallen. In the distance, the sound of the waves could be heard. Those familiar, rhythmic, relaxing sounds. "Giuseppe," said Stephan after a while, "when you lost your wife, how did you go on?" "Martha lost her husband and her son. How did she go on?" "Harrison lost his wife. How did he go on?" "How do all of you do it?" Giuseppe remained silent for a long time. His eyes were fixed on the fire. Then he spoke. "When I lost Maria," he said with deep sadness in his voice, "I was like you. I was finished. I wanted to die. I even tried." He rolled up his sleeve and showed an old scar on his arm stump. "But the sea saved me. I got on my boat. I went to kill myself. But I looked at the sea and I saw something. Dolphins. 10, maybe 15 dolphins were playing around my boat. And in that moment I understood. Life is still beautiful. There are still miracles. It's still worth living." Stephan listened in amazement. Giuseppe had never opened up to him like this before. "Martha," continued Giuseppe, "after losing her son, she didn't speak for a year. To no one. She only worked in silence in her cafe. But one day a little girl arrived. She was lost. She was scared. Martha took her in her arms, calmed her, and found her family. And the girl hugged her and said, 'Thank you, Aunt.' Martha cried that day, for the first time, and after crying she started talking, because she understood that she still had things to offer, that there were still people she could love." "What about Harrison?" asked Stephan. "I don't know anything about Harrison," replied Giuseppe, "but I'm sure he also found something. Perhaps a mission, perhaps a responsibility, perhaps another type of love. Each person finds a different path. Your path is fishing, the sea, this small town, and perhaps with time other things. Stephan tried to absorb those words. Each person found a different path. Giuseppe had found the dolphins. Martha had found that little girl. Harrison had found his mission. And Stephan, what had he found? He had found the waves. He had found the second chance. He had found this cabin, this town, these people. And perhaps most importantly, he had found himself. A new self. Not Colonel Mitchell, just Stephan. A fisherman, a survivor, someone who had started over. "Tomorrow," said Giuseppe as he stood up, "I will introduce you to Marco. He has a large boat. He does deep-sea fishing. Perhaps one day you will go out with him. You will learn new things." "Deep sea?" asked Stephan. "I still only go 5 miles out." "Isn't it too soon for deep sea?" "No," answered Giuseppe with determination. "You are ready. Not physically, but mentally. And when the mind is ready, the body follows." That night, when Stephan lay down on his mattress, he stayed awake again. But this time it was not because he was trying to have nightmares. He was thinking. He was thinking about what he had lived in the bay, about Giuseppe's words, about the change he had experienced inside. When he arrived here 3 weeks ago, he had only one goal: to escape from pain. But now he realized it was impossible to escape from pain. Pain was always with him, but he could dance with pain. He could walk with pain. He could even live with pain. He woke at dawn, although in reality he didn't wake because he hadn't slept. But his body had rested. His mind had calmed. He got up, washed his face with cold water, and looked at himself in the mirror. The man he saw in front of him was different from 3 weeks ago. His face was still marked, his eyes still tired. But something had changed. Perhaps his posture, perhaps his gaze, perhaps an inner light. Small, flickering, but it was there. When he reached the pier, he found Marco. He was a large bearded man with a powerful voice. His boat was twice as large as the second chance. On it was written, "Queen of the Sea." "Ah, Stephan," shouted Marco. "Giuseppe has told me about you. Do you want to come with me today? I'm going to the southern waters. 15 miles from the coast. To fish for tuna. 15 miles. The farthest Stephan had ever gone was 5 miles. But Giuseppe's words echoed in his ears. "You are ready." "I'll go," said Stephan. "When?" "In half an hour," said Marco. "Get ready." Stephan returned to the second chance and prepared his backpack. Water, sandwiches, raincoat, cap. Then he stopped for a moment. He entered the small cabin of the boat. There was the trunk with his military belongings. He still hadn't opened it. He couldn't open it, but today he opened it. Inside was his uniform, his medals, his rank insignia, a photo of Margaret, Thomas's toy soldiers, Emily's drawings. Everything was there, organized, protected. He took the photo. Margaret was smiling in the garden. Thomas and Emily were at her side. A sunny day, a happy moment. Stephan touched the photo, kissed it. "Today," he whispered, "I'm going to deep waters. I'm afraid, but I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it to live. Follow me, will you?" He put the photo in his pocket. He closed the box, and he left. When he boarded Marco's boat, there were 2 other people. Antonio and Carlos. He knew both of them. "Hello, Stephan," said Carlos cheerfully. "Are you ready for the deep sea? Everything is different there." "I'm ready," said Stephan with a determined voice. The boat left the harbor. The motor was powerful, the boat was fast. The coast quickly receded. After 5 miles, Stephan was out of his usual area. 7 miles, 9 miles, 10 miles, 12 miles, and finally 15 miles. Everything had changed completely. The coast was no longer visible. In all directions there was only water, deep, dark blue, almost black water. The boat was like a small dot in that infinite ocean. At first, Stephan felt panic. There was no coast. There were no reference points. What if they got lost? What if a storm broke out? What if the motor broke down? But then he took a deep breath. He remembered Giuseppe's voice. Feel the fear, but do not surrender to it. We're in the tuna zone, said Marco, reducing the motor speed. Deep waters, big fish, but we must be careful. Tuna is strong. It can drag you. They prepared the rods. Large, powerful rods. The bait was placed, small fish, squid, and they were cast into the water. They waited. Marco slowly moved the boat. Antonio held the rod. Carlos checked the equipment. Stephan only observed, learned. Half an hour passed. Nothing happened. An hour passed. Still nothing. Patience, said Marco. Tuna requires patience. Stephan sat on the deck. He looked around. 15 miles from the coast with no sign of it, just them and the ocean. And curiously, that no longer bothered him. On the contrary, it gave him peace, because the ocean had no questions. It did not hold Stephan accountable. It did not ask him why he could not save his family, why he was not more careful, why he wasn't home. It asked him nothing. It was simply there, infinite, indifferent, welcoming. And Stephan found comfort in that indifference. Bite, shouted Antonio suddenly. His rod had bent. The line was taut. It's something big. Everyone sprang into action. Marco took the helm. Carlos helped Antonio. Stephan stepped back and observed. The struggle began. The tuna tried to escape. Pulling the line, it dragged Antonio. But Antonio was experienced. He pulled, released, pulled, released. He found the rhythm. 10 minutes passed. 15 minutes. 20 minutes. They sweated. Their arms ached. But nobody gave up. And finally the tuna came to the surface. An enormous, magnificent silver creature. Perhaps 80, 90 kilos. It thrashed, struggled, wanted to live. Marco and Carlos caught it with a net and pulled it onto the deck. The fish writhed on the deck. Its eyes were bulging and its mouth was open. Antonio quickly grabbed the knife and killed the fish. Clean, quick, painless. The fish writhed one last time and became still. Silence fell. Everyone looked at the fish. It was beautiful. It was strong, and now it was dead. Good catch, said Marco, nodding his head. Very good catch, but Stephan felt something more. He looked at the fish and saw himself. Fighting, resisting, wanting to live, but in the end accepting, because life and death were part of the cycle. That fish had died today, but it had lived for all the days before. It had swum freely, had hunted, perhaps had reproduced. It had lived a full life, and now that life had come to an end. Margaret, Thomas, Emily. They had also lived a full life. Short, yes, but full. Margaret had loved. Thomas had laughed. Emily had sung. And now those lives had come to an end, but Stephan's had not ended. It still continued, and perhaps, just perhaps, that was a blessing, an opportunity to live the days they could not live, to see the sunrises they could not see, to hear the sound of the waves they could not hear. Stephan, said Marco, are you okay? You look pale. I'm fine, responded Stephan. And this time he wasn't lying. I was just thinking. What were you thinking about? About life, replied Stephan simply, and about death, and about how both can be beautiful. Marco looked at Stephan strangely, but he said nothing. He just nodded his head, as if he understood. On the return journey, Stephan sat on the deck and took out the photo. He looked at Margaret. She was smiling in the photo. She always smiled. Today, he whispered, I went out 15 miles. I was afraid, but I did it. I did it for you, and tomorrow perhaps I'll go farther. Perhaps 20 miles. Perhaps 30. Because now I understand. You didn't want me to go away. You wanted me to live. And I will live. I promise you. He kissed the photo and put it in his pocket, and he looked at the horizon. The sun was setting, the sky was orange, and Stephan, for the first time, understood that the sunset was not just the end, but also the beginning, because every sunset brings with it a new dawn, and Stephan was ready to wait for the new dawns. Part 3. The last week of August was hot in Monterey, but Stephan no longer minded the heat. He got up every morning at dawn, went out to sea with the second chance, and returned at sunset when the sun went down. A monotonous routine, but very comforting. One morning Giuseppe made him a different proposal. "Tonight," he told him as he had his coffee, "there's a small gathering at Martha's Cafe. It's the community of fishermen. We do it once a month. We eat, tell stories, sing. Do you want to come?" Stephan hesitated. Being with people, socializing, was he ready for that? But Giuseppe's hopeful look convinced him. "I'll go," he said. "But I may not want to talk much." "That's okay," said Giuseppe. "Just sit and listen." That's enough. That evening, when Stephan arrived at Martha's Cafe, it was full of fishermen. Marco Antonio, Carlos, Samuel, Daniel. They were all there. The tables were joined together, and in the center there was a large table. "Fish, bread, salad, wine." "Stephan," shouted Marco. "Come, come! Sit with us." Stephan entered timidly. Everyone turned toward him, smiled, and greeted him. But nobody asked him questions. Nobody forced him to talk. They simply accepted him. Martha put a plate in front of him. "My special recipe," she said, winking at him. "Fish stew, Giuseppe's favorite." "Thank you," said Stephan. He sat at the table. Giuseppe was on his right and Marco on his left. The meal began. At first he ate in silence and listened. Conversations developed around him. Marco was talking about his catch that day. 85 kilos. The largest tuna I've ever seen in my life. Carlos laughed. "You always say the largest tuna I've ever seen in my life, Marco. Maybe it's the same fish and you forget." Everyone laughed. Marco put his arm around Carlos's shoulder. Carlos, always joking. "But this time it's true, I swear." Antonio quietly served wine to everyone. Samuel cut bread. Daniel helped Martha bring the food. Everyone did something, everyone had a place, and Stephan for the first time felt that sense of belonging. Nobody excluded him. Nobody saw him as the newcomer. He was simply Stephan. "A fisherman," one of them. As the meal progressed, stories began. Giuseppe spoke of his youth. How he came from Italy to America, how he almost sank with his first boat, how he met Maria. "Maria worked at the pier," said Giuseppe with shining eyes. "She sold fish. I passed by there every day, but I didn't dare talk to her. Finally, one day I fell off the boat, right into the water. Maria ran and saved me. And the first thing she said to me was, 'You're the most clumsy fisherman.'" Everyone laughed. Giuseppe also laughed, but his eyes were moist. "But," he continued, "then she said to me, 'Clumsy fishermen have good luck. Come to dinner tomorrow.' And I went. And we got married. We were together for 40 years. 40 wonderful years." Silence fell. Everyone knew that Maria had died. But nobody said anything sad, because Giuseppe was not sad. He was remembering. Remembering with a smile, Marco put his hand on Giuseppe's shoulder. "Maria would be proud of you, Giuseppe, because you are still alive. You still love. You still teach." Giuseppe nodded his head. "Yes, because life is stronger than death. Always." Stephan absorbed these words. Life is stronger than death. Was it true? Margaret, Thomas, and Emily had died, but their love was still alive. Inside Stephan, every day, every moment. Perhaps Giuseppe was right. It was Martha's turn. She also spoke of her husband and son, but not with sadness, but with pride. "My son, Jack," she said, "was 19 years old when he died in Normandy. But in those 19 years he lived a whole lifetime. He ran, played, loved, laughed, and in the end he fought for his country. As a mother, losing him was the most difficult thing, but raising him was the most rewarding." Silence fell. Then Samuel raised his glass. "To Jack," he said. "And to all the heroes." "To Jack," they all repeated. "And to all the heroes." Stephan raised his glass. "To Jack," he whispered. "And to Margaret, Thomas, and Emily." Marco heard him. He turned to Stephan. "Have you lost your family?" Stephan nodded his head. For the first time, he did not find it difficult to answer that question. "Yes, my wife and my 2 children. In the war." "I'm sorry," said Marco with sincerity. "I am too," said Stephan. "But now I feel more than just sorrow. I also remember them. and doing so makes me feel better. Marco put his hand on Stefan's shoulder. There was no need to say anything. That gesture said it all. I understand. You are not alone. We are here. As the evening progressed, songs began. Giuseppe sang an old Italian song. His voice was cracked, the notes were wrong, but he sang with all his heart. Carlos sang a Mexican song. Antonio accompanied him silently. Samuel hummed a jazz song, then everyone turned to Stephan. Your turn, said Marco. I can't sing, said Stephan. It doesn't matter, said Carlos. Sing anyway, Stephan thought. What song could he sing? Military marches? No, those were in the past. Then he thought of one. A song Margaret liked. A lullaby he used to sing to Emily. Okay, he said. But it's going to be really bad. It doesn't matter, they all said together. Stephan took a deep breath, and he started. His voice trembled, the notes were wrong, but he sang. He sang Emily's lullaby, and as he sang, his eyes filled with tears. But along with the tears, something else came. Lightness. When he finished the song, silence fell. Then applause. Strong, sincere, effusive applause. Bellissimo, said Giuseppe. Very beautiful. Martha approached him and hugged him. Thank you, she told him, for singing this song, because it shows that you haven't forgotten them, and seeing that gives us hope. That evening, on the way back to the cabin, Stephan asked Giuseppe, Today you made everyone talk about their families. Why did you do that? Because, said Giuseppe, forgetting is not healing. Remembering is healing, but remembering with love, not with pain. That difference is important. Tonight everyone remembered with love. You did too. Yes, said Stephan. I remembered with love, and I sang. For the first time I spoke about Margaret and the children without crying. I felt, but I didn't drown. That's it, said Giuseppe. That is healing. To feel the emotions, but not be a slave to them. When they reached the cabin, Stephan lay down on his mattress. But that night his thoughts were different. He thought about Margaret, but not with pain. He remembered those days. Their first meeting, the proposal of marriage, the wedding, the birth of Thomas, the birth of Emily. Happy moments, beautiful moments, and he realized that those moments were still his. No one could take them from him, not even death. Because memories are immortal. The next morning he went out to sea as usual, but this time he did something different. In the boat there was a small notebook and a pencil. He sat down and began to write. Dear Margaret, Thomas, Emily, today is the last day of August. I have spent 3 weeks in Monterey. I have become a fisherman. I have met new people. And most importantly, little by little I am recovering. I still miss you. Every day, but now that longing no longer kills me. On the contrary, it gives me life, because I want to live for you. I want to see the beauty that you cannot see. I want to hear the sounds that you cannot hear. Last night I sang Emily's lullaby in front of people, and I didn't cry. I just smiled, because that song was a beautiful memory. It wasn't sad, it was beautiful. The sea is teaching me many things. Patience, acceptance, peace, and most importantly, how to live. To truly live, deeply, with meaning. I love you. I will always love you. But now I'm not grateful for losing you. I'm grateful for having had you. Always yours, Stephan. When he finished the letter, he read it. Then he carefully folded it and put it in his pocket. Perhaps one day he would throw it into the sea. But not now. For now, just writing it was enough. The sun had risen. It was time to fish. He prepared his net, cast it, and he waited. While he waited, he looked around. The ocean stretched infinite. The sky was blue. The seagulls flew freely. And Stephan was part of that landscape. Just a fisherman, just a human being, just a survivor. But that just was enough. Because being alive was a miracle in itself. And Stephan was finally beginning to see that miracle. By midday, he had caught 14 fish. A good catch. He stored them in the box and returned to the harbor. Giuseppe was waiting, as always. How did it go? He asked. Good, replied Stephan. Very good. And Giuseppe, yes? Thank you. For everything. For bringing me here. For your patience. For teaching me the sea. Giuseppe smiled.
I haven't done anything, son.
You have. You have chosen. You have chosen to live. And that is the most difficult choice. Perhaps, said Stephan. But you have shown me the way. And that is everything. That evening, they sold the fish at the market. For the first time, Stephan sold his own fish. People came, looked, and bought. And the money came into Stephan's hands. It was his first earnings. The first money he had earned with his own hands, with his own effort. It was not a military salary. It was not a severance payment. It was the fruit of his own work, and that gave him a strange pride. He no longer just survived. He lived, he produced, he contributed to society. You did a good job today, said Giuseppe as he counted the money. $20. Half is yours, $10. It wasn't much. But for Stephan, they were the most valuable $10 in the world. Giuseppe, he said, this money, what should I do with it? Whatever you want, replied Giuseppe. Save it, spend it, donate it. It's your money, you decide. Stephan thought about it. Then he made a decision. I'll save $5. The other $5, I'll give them to Martha, for last night. That dinner did me a lot of good. Giuseppe nodded his head, approving. Good decision. Giving is as important as receiving. That evening he went to Martha's cafe. It was empty, only Martha was there, cleaning the tables. Stephan, she said, surprised. Good evening.
Have you forgotten something?
No, said Stephan. I just wanted to thank you for dinner last night. He took out the $5 and handed them to her. Please accept them. Martha refused the money. No, the dinner was a gift. I don't want money. I know, said Stephan. But I want to give it to you, because you have given me something. Belonging, and that's worth much more than $5. But for now, it's all I have. Martha looked into Stephan's eyes. Then slowly she took the money. Okay, she said softly. I accept it, but only because I believe you need to give it. Thank you, Stephan. Stephan smiled. I thank you. When he left, night had already fallen. The stars shone in the sky. The moon was full and close. The sea was covered in silver light, and Stephan stopped on the pier and gazed at the landscape. When he arrived here 3 weeks ago, he was a finished man. But now, little by little, he was rebuilding himself. Every day he placed another brick. Every fish, a brick. Every sound of the waves, a brick. Every smile, every conversation, every memory. They were all bricks. And one day, perhaps soon, perhaps in years, he would build a new house. A house without Margaret, Thomas, or Emily, but a house built with their love, and that house would be solid. Because it would not be made of pain, but of acceptance. When September arrived, the weather in Monterey began to change. The mornings were cooler and the afternoons grew darker earlier. But for Stephan, the change of season meant something more than just a change in weather. Something was changing inside him. Now he could sleep every night. 4, sometimes 5 hours. Nightmares still appeared, but they were less frequent and less intense. And instead of waking up and thrashing in bed drenched in sweat, he could hear the sound of the waves and fall back asleep. Giuseppe made an important announcement one morning. Today, he said as he poured himself coffee, I want to take you to a special place, but not by boat but by land. Where? Asked Stephan with curiosity. It's a surprise, said Giuseppe, winking. Just trust me. After breakfast, they set out in Giuseppe's old truck. They headed north, following the coast. The road climbed slowly, moving away from the sea. They entered a wooded area. Half an hour later, they arrived at a small church. It was a wooden structure, old and modest. It was surrounded by a cemetery. Stephan's heart sank. A cemetery. Giuseppe had brought him to a cemetery. Giuseppe, he said, his voice tense. I don't know. I know, said Giuseppe, turning off the engine. It's difficult, but it's important. Come with me. They got out of the truck. They entered the cemetery. Stone tombstones were arranged in irregular rows. Some were new, others very old. On them were names, dates, and brief messages. Giuseppe headed to a specific grave. Stephan followed him. On the tombstone was written, Maria Rossi, 1892-1938. Beloved wife, beautiful soul, forever in our hearts. Giuseppe stopped in front of the grave. He bowed his head. He remained silent for a long time. Stephan observed him. Giuseppe's shoulders trembled. Was he crying? But he made no sound. Finally, Giuseppe spoke. Maria, he said in a low voice, I have brought someone to you. His name is Stephan. He has also lost someone like you. In fact, he has lost 3. And now, little by little, he is recovering. Just as I have recovered, silence fell. The wind whispered through the leaves. To Stephan, continued Giuseppe, I am teaching what you taught me. To love the sea, to be patient, to accept. And he is a good student, like you. Giuseppe took a small flower from his pocket. It was a wild daisy. He placed it on the grave. I love you, he said. I will always love you. But I no longer cry every day. I only come on weekends. And when I come, I don't become sad. I just remember you, smiling. He turned and looked at Stephan. Now it's your turn. I don't have graves here, said Stephan. I know, said Giuseppe.
But they are in your heart.
And your heart is the most important cemetery. Come, speak to them, Stephan hesitated. Then slowly he approached Giuseppe. He closed his eyes. He took a deep breath. Margaret, he began, his voice trembling. Thomas, Emily, I am here, in Monterey, by the sea. I fish, and I am recovering. He stopped. A lump formed in his throat, but he continued. Every day without you was difficult. It's still difficult, but now it's not unbearable, because I have understood that you haven't gone. You have only changed form. You are no longer here physically, but your love is here, every day, every moment, in the waves, in the sun, in the wind. It's everywhere. He opened his eyes. He looked at the sky, and I know you are watching me, and I know you want me to be happy. That's why I will try. I will try to be happy. For you, Giuseppe put his hand on Stephan's shoulder. Bravo, he said. Very good, very good. As they left the cemetery, Stephan felt different, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from him. Speaking, confessing, accepting. It was all part of the healing. Getting into the truck, Giuseppe asked him, How do you feel? I don't know, answered Stephan honestly. Strange, but strange in a good way, as if I could finally say goodbye to them. Not completely, but partly. That's it, said Giuseppe. Goodbye is always gradual. One day it is complete, but there is no rush. On the way back they took the coastal road. Stephan looked out the window toward the ocean. The waves broke on the shore. Seagulls flew. The sun shone on the water, and at that moment he realized something. For the first time he felt no pain looking at the ocean. He only felt peace, because the ocean was no longer his enemy. It was his ally, his therapist, his home. That evening, together with Giuseppe, they repaired the second chance. There were small tears in the sail and squeaks in the steering system. They worked for 2 hours in silence side by side. While they worked, Stephan asked, Giuseppe, after losing Maria, have you ever loved another person? Giuseppe stopped the hammer he held in his hand. He thought. No, he said finally. Maria was my only love. But that doesn't mean it's correct. It's just my choice. Some people fall in love again. Others don't. Both things are correct. And you, do you regret it? Living alone? Sometimes, answered Giuseppe honestly. Sometimes, at night, the solitude becomes heavy. But then I remember I am not alone, because Maria is still with me. And this town is my family. You, Marco, Martha, all of you. You are all my family. Stephan nodded his head. He understood. Family was not just blood ties. They were also chosen people. And Stephan, little by little, was choosing a new family here. When they finished the repairs, they sat with Giuseppe on the pier. The sun was setting. The sky was pink-orange. The fishing boats returned one by one to the harbor. Stephan, said Giuseppe, lighting his pipe, I'm going to ask you a question. A serious question. Ask, said Stephan. Do you want to stay here, in Monterey? Or is this just temporary? Will you leave one day? Stephan had never asked himself that question. Was this temporary? Was it just a place to stay until he recovered? Or was it a true home? I don't know, he answered honestly. When I arrived here, I had no plans. I was just running from pain. But now I'm not running. I'm here. I'm really here. And this makes me feel good. Then stay, said Giuseppe simply. Perhaps a year, perhaps 10 years, perhaps forever. But stay, because you belong here. The sea has chosen you, and the sea is rarely wrong. That night, Stephan took a long time to fall asleep, but this time it was not because of nightmares. He was thinking. Giuseppe's question kept going through his head. Stay here? Really? Would he never go back to Baltimore? To Annapolis? To military life? But the more he thought about it, the clearer the answer became. No, those lives had ended. Colonel Mitchell had died, Margaret's husband had died, Thomas and Emily's father had died. Now only Stephan remained. Stephan the fisherman. And this Stephan wanted to be here in Monterey at sea. In the morning, he was decided. He told Giuseppe, I will stay. I will stay here in Monterey. Perhaps not forever, but for now, yes. This is my home. Giuseppe's face lit up. Magnificent. Excellent. Then you need to find a real home. You can't stay in the cabin forever. You must have your own place. But I don't have money, said Stephan. I only have what I earn fishing, and that's very little. It doesn't matter, said Giuseppe. There's an empty cabin on the pier. It's small, old, but solid. The owner accepts repairs instead of rent. If you repair it, you can stay there. Really? Asked Stephan. Really, said Giuseppe. Come, I'll show you. The cabin was at the end of the pier. It was one room made of wood with peeling paint. The windows were broken, the door squeaked, and the roof leaked. But the foundations were solid. It's okay, said Stephan, looking at the cabin. Yes, it's okay. I'll repair it. From that day on, Stephan worked 2 jobs. In the mornings he fished, and in the afternoons he repaired. He changed the window panes, oiled the door, and repaired the roof. He painted the walls and cleaned the floor. He installed a small stove and built a simple bed. Marco, Carlos, Antonio, everyone helped. They brought materials, lent him tools, shared knowledge. A week later, the cabin was livable. On moving day, Giuseppe gave him a gift. A small wooden frame. Inside was a photo. Giuseppe and Maria, young, happy, smiling. This, said Giuseppe, is for you to remember. Loss is not the end. It is only the beginning of a new beginning. Look at us. We have also lost, but we are still here. We are still smiling. Stephan took the photo and hung it on the wall of his cabin. Then he took out of his bag the photos of Margaret, Thomas, and Emily. He hung them one next to the other, Giuseppe and Maria. Margaret, Thomas, and Emily. 4 lost souls, but all remembered with love. Here, said Stephan, looking at the photos. Here is my family. The old and the new. Everyone is here. That night he slept for the first time in his own house. Small, simple, but his. Outside, the waves broke rhythmically against the shore. Seagulls slept in silence. The moon lit the interior through the window, and Stephan slept in peace. In his dream, he was at sea, in the second chance in the deep sea. But he was not alone. There was someone on the boat. Blurry silhouettes. They didn't speak, but he felt their presence. Stephan knew who they were. Margaret, Thomas, Emily. They traveled with him. They would travel forever. Invisible, but always there. And that did not frighten him. On the contrary, it comforted him. When he woke in the morning, he was smiling. For the first time in a long time, he had woken up smiling. He opened the window. The fresh sea air entered the room. The sun was rising. A new day was beginning. Good morning, Margaret, he said aloud. Good morning, Thomas, Emily. Today is going to be a good day. I can feel it. He was ready. He headed to the second chance. Giuseppe was waiting, as always. Your first night in your own house. How was it? He asked. It was great, answered Stephan. Really great. Good, said Giuseppe. Because now you are a true resident of Monterey. "Welcome home, Stephan Mitchell." "Thank you," said Stephan. "Thank you for everything." He sailed toward the sea. The sun shone in the sky, the waves danced, life continued, and Stephan finally was part of that life. He was not just alive, he was living, really living, deeply with meaning. War had stolen his family from him. But the sea had given him a reason to live. Pain and peace had intertwined. And Stephan, in this strange world, had finally found his place. The waves continued to speak, and Stephan continued to listen, because the sound of the waves was now his lullaby. It was the remedy for his pain. It was the source of his hope, and that was enough. It would always be enough. Part 5 in mid-September. Stephan Mitchell thought for the first time about the true meaning of the word home. His small cabin on the pier was no longer just a shelter. The photos on the walls, the blue ocean visible from the window, the aroma of coffee that reached his nose in the mornings. It all indicated that this place was his home. One Saturday morning, Giuseppe knocked on his door. "We're not going out to sea today," he told him. "Today is a special day." "What's special about it?" asked Stephan as he took a sip of coffee. "It's the town festival," replied Giuseppe with enthusiasm. "Once a year, the whole town gathers to give thanks to the sea. Food, music, dance. You have to come." Stephan hesitated. Crowds, noise, social interaction, all that still exhausted him. But seeing the expression of hope on Giuseppe's face, he couldn't refuse. "Okay," he said. "I'll go." In the afternoon, the town square had completely changed. Colorful flags had been hung, long tables set up, and a small stage erected in the center. People, families, children, everyone was there. When Stephan entered the square, several people recognized him. Marco waved at him. Martha smiled at him. Carlos shouted, "Stephan, come here." He approached slowly. He sat at a table. Around him were conversations, laughter, life. And for the first time, he didn't feel uncomfortable among so many people. Giuseppe sat beside him. "You see," he told him, "you are no longer a stranger. You are one of us." The food began to be served. Fish, mussels, shrimp, salad, bread. Everything was fresh and delicious. Stephan ate and enjoyed it, not just to feed himself, but to live the moment. When the music started, some couples began to dance. Giuseppe took Martha's hand and asked her, "Would you dance with me?" Martha laughed and accepted. Stephan watched them. Two elderly people, both had lost their spouses, both had suffered. But now here they were dancing. They laughed. They were alive. A woman approached Stephan. She was about 30 years old, with long hair and a kind face. "Hello," she said. "I'm Catherine. I'm a teacher in the town. I haven't seen you before." "Stephan," he said, standing up and shaking her hand. "I just moved here. I'm a fisherman." "Ah, Giuseppe's new apprentice," said Catherine. "People have told me about you. Welcome to Monterey." "Thank you," said Stephan. "Do you dance?" asked Catherine shyly. Stephan froze. Dance? How long had it been since he danced? The last time he had danced with Margaret was before Thomas was born. 12 years had passed since then. I don't know how to dance," he said. "It doesn't matter," said Catherine, smiling. "I'm not very good either." "We'll stumble together." Stephan hesitated. Then he looked at Giuseppe. The old man nodded his head, encouraging him. "Okay," said Stephan. "But if I step on your feet, I'm sorry." Catherine laughed. "Deal." They went to the dance floor. The music was slow and melodic. Stephan put his hand on Catherine's waist, timidly, respectfully. They began to take steps. At first it was clumsy, with jerky movements. But Catherine was patient. "Listen to the music," she told him softly. "Just listen to the music. The steps will come on their own." Stephan closed his eyes. He listened to the music, and gradually his body adapted to the rhythm. The steps became more fluid, his hands more relaxed. As he danced, he thought of Margaret. But this time not with pain, only as a memory. "Margaret would want me to dance," he thought. She would want to see me happy. When the dance ended, applause was heard. Stephan opened his eyes and looked around. People were smiling, not mocking. "Thank you," said Catherine. "That was lovely." "I thank you," said Stephan, his voice breaking. "It's been a long time. It's been a long time since I felt like this." Catherine looked at him with understanding. "Giuseppe has told me your story. I'm very sorry for your loss. But you should know one thing. You are a strong person. And here people have started to care about you. I can feel it." "Thank you," said Stephan with a trembling voice. This means a lot to me." As the evening progressed, Stephan integrated into the group. He talked, laughed, listened to stories. Marco told his fishing anecdotes. Antonio talked about Italy. Samuel talked about jazz. Daniel shared his war memories. Then it was Stephan's turn. "What did you do in the war?" asked a young man. Stephan paused for a moment. Talking about the war was still difficult. But here, with these people, perhaps he could do it. "I was a Marine," he said. "A colonel. I served for 12 years. Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, Okinawa. I fought in many places." "You are a hero," said the young man with admiration. "No," replied Stephan gently. "I'm not a hero. I was just a man doing his duty. And that duty made me lose many things. But at the same time, it taught me many others." "What did it teach you?" asked Catherine. Stephan thought about it. "It taught me the value of life," he said finally. "How valuable each moment is. And also how important it is to live in peace. War is not a solution. It's only destruction. True power is not in war, but in living in peace." Silence fell. Everyone tried to absorb Stephan's words. "Amen," said Samuel. "Certainly, amen." The night went on until late. Bonfires were lit, songs sung, and memories shared. And Stephan, with each passing minute, felt a little more comfortable. He was integrating a little more. Near midnight, Giuseppe approached him. "How are you?" he asked. "I'm good," replied Stephan. "Really good. Today has been a very special day. It's been a long time since I felt like this. It's been a long time since I felt part of a group." "Because you are part of a group," said Giuseppe. "Of this place, of us. It's that simple." Stephan looked around. At the tables, around the bonfires, on the dance floor. There were people everywhere, of different ages, different pasts, different pains. But they were all together. They supported each other. "Giuseppe," said Stephan, "I want to tell you something." "Tell me," said Giuseppe. "When I arrived here," said Stephan, his voice trembling, "I wanted to die. Really. When my family died, a part of me died with them, and I thought perhaps it would be better to die completely. But you convinced me to live, not just with words, but with your example. You showed me the sea. You showed me patience. You showed me love. And now, here, with these people, with this life, I want to live. Really, I want to live. And I owe it all to you." Giuseppe's eyes filled with tears. The old man embraced Stephan with strength like a father. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "You saved yourself. I just showed you the way. But you were the one who walked it. And I'm proud of you. Very proud." The two men remained like that for a long time, embraced in silence but saying everything to each other. When the night ended, Stephan returned to his cabin. But this time he was not alone. He carried with him the warmth of all those people, their laughter, their conversations, their love. He lay down in his bed. He looked at the ceiling. He looked at the photos on the wall. Margaret, Thomas, Emily, Giuseppe, and Maria. They were all there, watching him. "Today," he whispered, "has been a beautiful day. And tomorrow perhaps it will be even more beautiful, because I'm no longer afraid. I'm not afraid to live. I'm not afraid to be happy. You would want that. And I will do it for you. I will live. Every day I will live a little more." He closed his eyes. Outside, the waves continued to speak, that familiar, soothing, infinite sound. Stephan's lullaby. And that night, he dreamed he was at sea. But this time there was no storm, no fear. There was only a calm, clear blue ocean. and Stephan was standing on the deck of the Second Chance. On the horizon, a light appeared. The sunrise, golden, warm, welcoming. And Stephan moved toward that light, because now he knew the darkness was over. The dawn had begun. Stephan Mitchell's story did not end here. He had many days ahead, many catches, many sunrises. But the most important journey had ended. From pain to acceptance, from destruction to rebuilding, from death to life. War had stolen his family from him, but the sea had given him a reason to live. Pain and peace had intertwined, and in this strange world, Stephan had finally found his place. The waves would continue to speak every day, and Stephan would continue to listen every day, because the sound of the waves was not just a sound. It was the sound of hope, of healing, of life, and that sound would never fall silent.